Fantastic. So thank you all so much for coming today to our Social Studies Summer Seminar Series. My name is Linda Burrows, and I am the K-12 Social Studies and World and Native Languages Specialist here at the Arizona Department of Education. And I am very pleased today to have with us some very talented teachers from the OER project. Jason Wilkinson and Megan Schultz are going to be taking you guys through the OER project, big history, and how that can fit perfectly with our Arizona standards, especially for 6th grade, and even some into 7th and 8th grade as well, depending on what you teach in middle school. For attendance purposes today, if you can for me, please type into the chat your first and last name as you have it registered in the system. And if you'd love to say where you're from, I'd love to see where in Arizona you guys are located. And then at the end of the training, I will have you do the exact same thing again. So that way I can take attendance, because you have to be present for most of the training in order to get your professional development credit. So with that, I again want to thank Jason and Megan today, and I will turn the time over to them.
Well, thank you very much. And hi, my name is Jason Wilkinson. I oversee professional development at the OER project, and I am joined today by one of our amazing teacher leaders. I'm going to pass the mic to her so she can introduce herself as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Schultz. I am a 7th and 8th grade world history teacher in New Jersey. I've been teaching a big history project for the last 4 years, and I also teach the world history project.
Cool. So a couple things I want to kind of cover on the top. So I'm really happy to be here. If you guys are able, if you could turn on your cameras, if not, no worries. What we're looking to do is have, hey, there we go, new faces. We're looking to have a pretty engaging opportunity to dive into a cool course. You can hear a little bit about it, and we can answer some questions as they come up. But I want to start off, like all good things, with an introduction and do now. So this is my question I'm posing to you guys. So you've had a long year. We've all had a long year. It feels like 10 years at times, right? But I want you to think about this past year. Think about your challenges, think about your successes, think about your highs, your lows. And with all that information in mind, I'm going to challenge you to put it all into a tweet. This is a tweet that's just for us, not going out into the interwebs. When you think about those inputs, maybe scribble down on a note sheet, a napkin, if you will. But when you've got that tweet describing your journey this past year, go ahead and drop it into the chat. So I'll give you about a minute to kind of think about it. Don't overthink. This is going to be one of those moments where you're not graded, you're not scored on how close you are to perfection. And while you guys are doing that, I'm going to check out the chat to see where people are coming from. And I think I breezed past it. I didn't even say I am coming from Washington, D.C. and Megan is coming from New Jersey. So we're on the East Coast visiting our friends out west. Okay, we got our first one in. Pivot, pivot, pivot. I might need to go back to that. Okay. Well, while we have the stage, I think I need some more content. So first of all, pivot, pivot, pivot. What's the first name there? I want to make sure I'm getting it right. I don't want.
It's just a reference to Friends.
No,
it's the famous scene in the show Friends when they're trying to get this couch up the stairs and Ross is yelling pivot, but it just, for at least in my district, we went from online to hybrid to in-person, back to hybrid, and we were constantly rewriting plans and so forth.
I got ahead of myself. I was looking for that digital handshake. What's your first name?
Mine is Patricia.
Patricia, see, I got the kind of AIM screen name there. I wasn't sure, but Patricia, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I'm gonna go just see, we've got some other friends. We've got T. Conrad with the COVID computers and distance learning. Oh my, I love it. I love it. Okay. We got hashtags. Sonia is, bringing the millennial energy, I hope. Like we got hashtag prepared online with little attendance. Okay, I respect that. Wow, what a year. Another hashtag, teaching in 2020. Very cool. So we got a few more coming. New job, new wife, new life. Congratulations, Jeffrey. Life changes during COVID. That is fantastic. So cool, still plugging. Okay, great. So we've got a couple of different things coming in. I love this activity because it's really helpful for me to get to know you, but also it's a nice way to reflect. But with that same energy in mind, I want to try something slightly different. So this is a kind of a hypothetical, but I'm curious, bonus points if you can give it a shot too. Can you tell the story of the world in a tweet? So that first kind of like question is yes or no, and why or why not? And if you really want to go for it, give it a shot. But I'm going to keep my eyes open for responses. And I love these tweets. They're still coming in. So Sonia was up to bat first. Okay, Christina. It's a story. Oh, see, we're going too fast. It's a story of adaptation from the earliest man to today and into the future. I love it. No, because our world's history is longer than. Okay, fair enough. Okay. So let's get a couple friends to expand out loud. So I see some things coming in. I think I'm going to talk to, and I am going to butcher your last name, Miss Luisi. Is that right? Is that close? Please don't yell at me.
Oh my gosh, it was perfect. Good job.
Yes. Very cool. Tell us more about your response.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is we didn't learn from history, so we were destined to repeat. We repeated a lot of, things in history. But I think just the diversity and so much has happened in, the lifetime that we know of in the world. I just don't think there's enough a way to condense it all into 280 characters.
No, I mean, I think that's.
But some of these are really good that are coming in too.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You started off with a strong response there. I respect that.
Thanks,
Does anyone else want to add some words to the conversation? Did your response differ from Ms. Luisi? And I'm inviting people to come off mute. We're all friends here. That hurts. It feels like we're not all friends. I'm going to call out Jeffrey. And I'm learning last names. Tell me your last name, Jeffrey.
Lacano.
Lacano. Got it.
Yes.
Just locked in the head. I'll never forget. Jeffrey Lacano. Mr. Lacano, do me a favor. Can you tell us your response to that question?
One more time, what was the question?
What was the question? That is the question, right?
Oh, the question on the thing. I thought you asked it separate. Men rise and fall quickly.
Okay. So you can do it. You're saying that like that is your history of the world.
Right.
Okay.
Rise and fall.
Any last responses that kind of push our thinking on this one? Why might this be challenging to somebody? Oops. Somebody had just started and I cut them off.
Yeah, there is a lot, like what Amanda just put in the chat. There is so much and such diversity. So putting it into a simple 280 words seems almost not just difficult, but like would be a shortcoming for history.
And we're not even talking, we're talking characters. And the fact that you made that mistake says to me you're a great person, because that means you're probably not on Twitter. Twitter's a terrible place. It is a garbage fire. Do not go in there. See, we got some nods there. It's a terrible, no. But so why did I ask you to do that? So this is an interesting activity because I think it helps us start to get our heads wrapped around new courses. When we are engaging in global literacy, we're engaging in helping our students wrap their heads around what happened before and how that can inform what's going to happen next. Choices are made. And I think a lot of the courses you'll see in this space make those choices, and some we agree with and some we don't. One of the benefits to the way we've kind of laid out the course we're going to kind of explore today is that choices can be made on your part, on your students' part, to kind of advance their interests, advance what's going to be driving them day to day. Also, a good note to kind of put out there is that the OER project, the OER stands for Open Educational Resources. That means that everything that you're going to see here today is wide open, ready for you to edit. You can use the course in its entirety, but you can also pull out different resources and tools, readings to supplement the work that you're already doing. Because again, like the goal here is to meet as many people where they are as we can. And for some, that is adding bits and pieces. For others, it's adopting something brand new in its entirety. As we go forth, we're going to be moving at a pretty moderate pace, but feel free to continue using the chat to drop questions. Megan's going to flag some for me in real time. Others we're going to write down and get back to, I guess, to Linda with like a longer kind of list of responses so we can make sure everyone has all the information they need. But we really want this to be a fluid conversation. Feel free to, if you know where the button is, raise a hand. If you want to just, speak out, that is fine as well. So our agenda for today is going to be as follows. We're going to start off just, where we were before, thinking about history in terms of tweets. We're going to move into a little bit of background information. That's something that people typically want to know. Like, we're not just coming out of, the blue. There's a background, there's a story to how this course came together, and really want to share that. Then we're going to kind of go over some of the key curricular highlights and resources so you have a feel for how it works. And then we want you to dive in. We're going to give you an opportunity in small groups to kind of look at our materials, a smaller text set just for sake of time, but obviously you can look at the entirety. It's all available for you right now online for free. And then lastly, we'll talk about next steps. I think one of the bigger, I skipped over additional supports. One of the bigger things that I think make getting into a new course easier is knowing how support can be offered, whether it is small pushes or kind of bigger bits of coaching. We've got a pretty nice infrastructure for that we want to share with you as well. So first, I'm going to ask Megan to drop a link into the chat for you. This is a link to one of the blogs. We have a pretty large blog library that we publish from teachers, from academics, all meant to kind of support users in our community for our courses. This one is a really great getting started blog that I wanted everyone to kind of check out and wrap your head around. So there's two questions I want you to think about as you read through this. First is, what connections can you make between Rachel's story and the tweet that you dropped or you shared earlier about your experience this past year? I think there's probably going to be some stuff there, and I'd love to hear that kind of commonality there. Second is, what questions are you hoping to find answers to today in this session? I think, you guys have been in PD at least today and probably a couple days before. Well, I think it's been going on for a week now, right? Yeah. So like this, so as you go through this, obviously questions are kind of always floating up there, but I'm really curious about questions you might have for us today. I want to see if we can make sure we find you some answers to that. But I'm going to zip it. I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. It's a short read, but I want you to have that time to read through, and we'll come back together and we'll chat. So I can showcase how technologically savvy I am, I'm going to tell Alexa to set a timer for me. Alexa, set a timer for 4 minutes.
4 minutes, starting now.
She's great. And if you're someone who finishes early, feel free to drop your response to the questions into the chat. All right, we got a bunch of answers starting to come in. So I'm going to, Alexa, stop timer.
4-minute timer canceled.
Magic, there we go. So we got a couple responses coming in, and I'm gonna ask a few folks if they could share aloud their response, maybe go a little bit deeper. I'm curious to hear a little bit about what they're referring to. So let's start with Marley.
Hello.
Marley, did I get your name right? Please say yes.
Yes, that's perfect.
Boom. Okay. So Marley, we got the two questions up there. First, kind of your connection to Rachel's story, but also just some of the questions you might have or that you want to answer today.
Yeah, so I made a big connection with her story about being really daunted by the content. This is my first year teaching social studies. What a year to do it, right? And so I felt like I was learning a lot of things for the first time, content-wise, not because I never paid attention in school, but because it just, a lot of the stuff I had honestly never heard of. And so I realized like everything's connected, like Rachel did. You know, at the end of the year, I'm like, wow, look at what I did. All this content is connected. And my big question is honestly, what is big history?
No, and we will definitely answer that. No, that's a great question. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Anyone else? How about Candace?
Yeah, I related to that idea of shifting your mindset. I know a lot of us teachers tend to be perfectionists or want to know everything right off the bat. And that's a skill that I know we've all had a lot of practice with this last year. So that was kind of comforting to see in the article. And my questions about it, Marley, the same that you said, I'm just looking to get some information and see how I could possibly integrate that into my curriculum.
Yeah. And that's a really good flag. So I noted from Linda a little bit earlier that a lot of you are just thinking about ways to kind of add a little bit more meat on the bones to, you know, put icing on the cake of the approach you're taking. And I think because of the format of this course, there's a lot of opportunities to kind of do that in different ways. So we're going to go through that. But I think as we go through and you have more questions, feel free, like I said, to drop them in the chat, to ask them out loud. Push us on that. Between me and Megan, we'll be able to, you know, at the very least, get you an answer soon after, if not today. Cool. But thank you guys for that share out. It was really great to kind of hear those questions, but also I think a bigger takeaway about this is like when we're getting into this course or even components of this course, there's different shifts in pedagogy, there's different bits of content that you might feel unfamiliar with, maybe new to you. We've got a couple different mechanisms to support that. But on top of all that, it's important to note that you're not alone. There's a lot of people who are brand new to this course and its structure. And we'll talk a little bit later about one of the more prominent examples of how you can get the kind of support in real time from other educators just like you, or who have been down the road just like you. And because you guys are so great at comments, they're coming in mass amounts. So I'm going to take my eye off the ball slightly there, but Megan will hold me accountable if there's something that I need to address immediately. So apologies if I miss it in real time, but we will still get to everyone as those questions come up. So next thing I want to note is going to be our alignment document. We have worked on this in-house for a little bit to kind of make sure we had the materials to kind of meet the needs of different areas, different districts around the country. And Arizona is no different. We really wanted to make sure if you're a brand new educator to Big History, you saw a clear connection between what we are covering in the course and where that's going to fall in your kind of larger kind of standards. I know in DC, I'm coming from DCPS, we had a burgundy booklet of DC standards that haunted me in my dreams. I don't know how the physical copy of this goes forth for y'all, but our team worked on making that connection really clear in this crosswalk document. It's about 16 pages. We're going to drop it into the chat. It is not a beach read. I wouldn't suggest going into it now. I just wanted to flag a couple things that are just notable there. Obviously, like we're looking at the standards, we're thinking about what makes the most sense, and what we've done in the document is really make that it show you like first unit by unit where those standards can be assessed, where they can be mastered by students, and it's going to help you make those strategic choices if you're trying to supplement to courses that you're already actively teaching in your classes. But again, we can go deeper on that a little bit later. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that that was one of our big documents. It's not, again, an engaging read as a whole group, but it is something that you can hold on to as a reference. So going back to Marley's question, so what exactly is this thing? And I think it starts off with like kind of really basic things. So like, first of all, like top line point, Bill Gates is the funder behind the OER project. It came out of one of his kind of like normal kind of day-to-day things where he's a learner, he likes to learn. And the Great Courses is one of the kind of areas that a lot of people kind of rely on. Has anyone ever used the Great Courses before? It's a thing. It's Audible has, I think, the bulk of the library, but for the most part, what happens is intellectuals, academics from around the world share their big ideas, share their courses on there. And some of those courses have applicability outside of the kind of general scope. So people like them. But he was listening to one by David Kristen from Sydney, Australia. And he was explaining his big idea about the way we teach history. And his big kind of proposition there is that a lot of people make the mistake of starting history in these kind of like singular moments, and it ends up feeling very siloed to students. What he wanted to do is kind of turn it on its face and have students engage in inquiry, in discovery, by starting off at the Big Bang and moving to present. And what you're going to see, what Megan's going to talk to more specifically, is the idea here isn't necessarily to kind of underscore any of the more recent occurrences. In contrast, actually, like the later units get much larger. What we are seeing is that the scope of this widens. We start off literally in a cosmic level at the Big Bang, and we get more and more granular as you get to the personal level. And that personal level is going to be where we're talking about human interaction, the things that really govern the way our students see the world, engage with the world. And also, one of the things that runs counter is that the units as we have right now, back in my day, like all units were more or less the same length. So to throw that out, what we're looking at here is the units actually get much larger as you get deeper into it, and you really see it kick off at unit 6. So this course, as it is designed, does spend a healthy amount of time really getting into the nuts and bolts of what you would think is a standard world history survey. But it just starts off with kind of a more grounded start in like the galaxy and seeing how the world actually came together. It all kind of starts from this idea of like the world didn't begin, when the written word started. It started, in something very specific. And if we start there and give students that deeper understanding, they can make some larger connections about what's going on in the world. So I'm going to pause there for a second. Questions about that? I know that was a lot to kind of drink in a second. I want to make sure that like the bigger questions about what this thing is being addressed bit by bit. But the kind of top line point is that is the general approach to the way we wrote this course. And Megan, feel free to jump in if there's something I missed about that one. I know.
You did good.
There we go. Affirmation. I need it. It's sad, but it's true. So I'm going to hand the baton to Megan for this slide right here.
Fantastic. Thank you. So this is kind of like a course at a glance, and it gives us a little bit of a timeline aspect of Big History. Big History covers 13.8 billion years of history, which is overwhelming at first. Feels overwhelming. But the approach is to use what we call thresholds of increasing complexity. These are key moments in the history of the universe where the universe and humans become irreversibly more complex. So this timeline kind of shows you that there are 10 units. So each of these colors, I think there's 9 colors on this one, represent a unit or a threshold. As Jason mentioned, the units in the beginning of the course are a little smaller. So units 1 through 5 really focus on formations in early life. So we look at the theories and evidence of the origins of the universe. We look at planet formation, the creation of elements. We look at the life evolving. And then units 6 through 10 are where humans show up and we stay, and we spend most of our time in units 6 through 10. So this is where we have the development of humans, we have agriculture, the emergence of civilizations, expansion, interconnection, and other key milestones in our progress. Jason, you're muted.
Yep, I know. There's always something, right? I'm going to flag 2 questions that came up in the chat just so we can make sure we get to those. So the first question, if I'm reading this in the right order, is it meant to be completed in an academic year? Do you use bits and pieces? So I think it depends on your approach. So like if the kind of, so my understanding is a lot of you guys are using your own courses as supplementing. And in that case, that's question's kind of moot. But in terms of like using this course in its entirety, if you were to do so, yes, it can be completed in an entire school year. So to give you an idea about the pacing for this, most people, and I was asking around, most people get to unit 6 right around the 4th month of the school year. That's how the timing kind of lays out. You'll see it in more detail in a couple of we have a course companions we built for different states, and you can see a couple examples of how people have mapped this onto their own district scope and sequence. But for the most part, unit 6 crosses the line right around that 4th month, and that gives you an idea of how long those other units are comparatively. The other question was, and I think this might be, Marley, did I answer this question as well, or do you want me to go into?
Yes, you did. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Cool. But thank you for the question. Let me see if there's one more. And that was just a comment from Linda, which is nice. I love compliments. So let's move on to this. And I think this is just another kind of finer point to kind of put on it. Obviously, it's a free online curriculum. It's a really beneficial tool for anyone who's really struggling with like textbooks that don't quite address what you're looking for, don't quite do what you want. Because of the open nature of it, you can edit as needed. Also, we'll talk about in more detail later, is that all of the texts and readings that we have available in this course are leveled. So you'll be able to change the Lexile level depending on the group you're working with, depending on individual challenges the student might have in terms of differentiation and whatnot. Like there's a lot of agency given to the teacher to kind of make those choices. And you'll see how we've kind of allowed individuals to kind of make those changes as you see the lessons in more detail. But the kind of graphic here I wanted to shine a light on is just the way that we think about like our whole kind of like expanding universe of materials. So we've got the platform, which is at the OERproject.com, where you can go and register if you haven't already to see our coursework. But when you get deeper into it, you see a bunch of other things that are really important to mention as well. We have different opportunities for assessment, summative and formative for students that are built in each of our units. That's not something that we left by the wayside. Also, we'll talk a little bit more about project score and Bhp score. These are going to be different tools that we've inserted into the courses to aid in the offering feedback to students in written work. And this is not to take the place of an educator. This is just to kind of add a little bit more basic feedback for students, because we know if you want students to get better at writing, they've got to write. And some of the challenges there is just the sheer amount of work that might be coming your way. So we made it a point to kind of add another smaller project called Project Source that helps in grading student work as it comes in. So, okay, but we'll talk about that some more. A couple of things to note. We'll talk about the community a little bit later too. And that's the big support I mentioned earlier It's like the best parts of Reddit and Twitter come together. It is a collaboration, a space, a community of all of the educators who are a part of the OER project globally. And they post, they respond to questions from new educators, they share student work, they share resources, they share their edits, their adaptations to different materials that are there. It's a really great place to search, to find things you're looking for, to add value to other people's questions. Again, we'll talk about it some more in detail, but I just want to note that that's one of the really amazing parts of this system that you can benefit from, whether it's that or anything else. They're all available for folks to use for free. So, does anyone like Legos currently? Is that just me? No, Marley's got a no. Megan is agreeing with me. There we go. Catherine is smirking, I believe. So Mary, I got a thumbs up. I love that. Jeffrey loves them. So Legos are kind of an interesting kind of image to kind of wrap your head around. But I think the thing that's important to kind of note here is that a lot of providers have open resources that resemble a pile of Lego blocks, right? So walk with me on this one. What I mean by that is that it's hard to tell like what's going on there when you're staring at the pile. You don't know if the pieces fit together the right way. You don't know if they're actually going to serve the purpose you're shooting for. It's hard to kind of discern that. And I think if you're an educator in a classroom, you really want to spend the bulk of your time supporting your students, not, you know, rifling through an online collection of stuff. And we really kept that in mind as we put everything together. What you're going to see when you go to the website and look at the materials is that we've aligned it all as courses with a normal kind of standard scope and sequence, all the materials that go along with that. And you'll be able to see that there is a standard progression of skills, of content that links a person who's engaging in that unit 1 with someone who's engaging with that unit 8 later down the road. Like there's no reason to make these difficult for someone to kind of piece together. Just like Legos really wanted to make it seem coherent and connected when you look at it in entirety or when you break it up into smaller pieces. But what does that mean functionally? So this is going to be a kind of a short list of all the things that you're going to find on our site. So we've got videos. These are videos that are going to be available that we've recorded ourselves, where we've connected our students with experts in the field, different parts of the world, different areas, who can shine a light on something very specific that's covered in a topic or in a course. Texts, like I said earlier, these are level texts that are going to be supportive of students when they're engaging in the work of each of these courses. And also, it's a really helpful thing to kind of review in advance. Marley she noted this a little bit earlier, but generally speaking, I'm a social studies person. I was not a science person ever. Like my teachers in high school will tell you that Jason did not have a great go at it. But the benefit to this also is going to be some of the learning documents we attached to each of the units. You're going to see unit guides that give you a good run through of what's going to be covered in there, the questions that will be grappled with, the misconceptions students may have. These are all things that support you so you can feel more confident going in. Obviously, there's other mechanisms as well, but these are a big step forward that we believe is going to be helpful. Lastly, we've got some other things. We don't call them lessons per se, we call them activities, but you're going to see a lot of our activities kind of laid out there because depending on how you go about things in your school or your district, lesson plans may look a little different. So we don't want to say they're lesson plans, but they are full activities with before, during, and after to support you engaging in the work with your students. Project-based learning is something that you're going to see regularly in our units. Investigations are going to be larger, more drawn out inquiry-based challenges for students to engage with the big driving questions for each unit. And lastly, infographics. Who doesn't love a good infographic? They're great to kind of help explain some of the more complicated or complex aspects of the course. So I'm going to pass it back to Megan.
All right. So this is a very brief look at kind of our content and skills mapping. And I do want to mention that if anybody is feeling overwhelmed or nervous thinking that they need to know the science or all of the history subjects, trust me, being the lead learner is the best role that you can take in the classroom, showing the students how to learn as opposed to teaching them all of the content is probably the most beneficial for them. But throughout the course, Big History is asking students to engage in these various historical thinking skills. So thinking across scale, both time and space, thinking of multiple disciplines and how various disciplines will look at a historical event. Making and testing claims. So how to use evidence, logic, intuition. We also have narratives and thresholds. So that concept of this increasing complexity at each threshold. And we revisit that narrative and threshold each unit. Causal thinking or causal reasoning. And reading and writing is in every unit. So we're focusing on that in every unit. Now, later in this workshop, you are going to dive a little deeper into this progression of these skills practices. So I'm not going to go into too much detail.
And sorry, just to name this specifically, like this isn't a sample, this is an actual breakdown of like what units we have obviously for this course and the skills that you're going to see grappled with by students in each of those units. That's a graphic you're going to find in the course, and it's going to help you if you're making those choices of what to pull, what to use, what not to use. I think this is going to be one of the many planning documents that can be really helpful for that.
So now I want to specifically talk about the reading. Big History provides a lot of opportunities for students to improve their reading and comprehension skills. First, we have a 3 close read process, which sounds like a lot, but it's really just one big read. The first part of 3 close reads is examining the gist of the article. So students might look at the headings, pictures, graphs, tables, anything that's included, and just try to respond to what they think the article is going to be about. The second reading is actually reading for comprehension, maybe pulling out vocabulary, identifying the article's claim. And then we go into the bigger picture. How does this article connect to what they already know? How does it challenge what they already know? Like Jason mentioned earlier, all of the readings are leveled. So you can choose the Lexile level that is best for your students to meet your students' needs. There are also audio versions of the articles. I believe Big History has all of them have audio. So this is helpful. I know I have students that prefer to listen to the articles, so I will share with them the audio. There's also vocabulary activities that are fun. There's, we spin a wheel and we act out vocabulary words. So there's a lot of opportunity to engage the students in reading skills. And lastly, using video as text as well. I know personally, my students use the transcripts to the video. You can download those and students can read along while we watch the video, or they could highlight the transcript to help monitor their own learning. So the next skill, and one of the most important skills that I focus on with my students, is the writing process. So there are a lot of informal and formal activities within Big History Project to allow my students to become better writers. So we have informal activities. I use the driving questions a lot. These are little notebook questions where students respond to it before they've really learned anything in the unit, and then they respond to the question a second time after we've worked through a lot of the information. And in this activity, I have my students reflect on how their thinking has changed. It gives them an opportunity to go back to our unit, look for evidence, make connections. We also have the more formal activities that Jason mentioned, which are our investigation writing. This is like a DBQ style where you have different primary and secondary sources that students will analyze and use them to develop a response to a prompt. Usually it's our driving question for the unit. And they'll use the evidence from those documents to support their response to the prompt. So building on that, with our writing, we use something called Big History Project Score. BHP Score is where students are using revision assistant. So my students will write their essay and they'll put it into revision assistant and they'll do what we call signal check. So when they hit signal check, revision assistant will score their essay. So it gives you immediate feedback on the essay, rated 1 through 4. And it's looking at different criteria on the rubric. So you're looking at the claim and focus, analysis and evidence, the organization, as well as language and style. So when students get this feedback, they can continue to edit their essay and continue to do signal checks until they get to a score that they're happy with, or until you tell them time's up and then they turn in their essay. BHP Score will give you a report of individual students. So not only that essay that they just did, but any previous essays also. You also have the whole class has a report, so you can see how your class is progressing. For me, I use this to conference with students. We'll look at their investigation scores and we'll set goals. It saves time for us because they know where they need improvement, so they can pick out the specific areas that they want to work on for their next investigation. And we can see growth throughout the year from the baseline investigation 0 all the way through investigation 9. So there are 10 investigations. It's a lot of writing if you do all of them. So some teachers just handpick a few of the investigations to work on. There's also activities in the course that are scaffolded writing activities. So you're teaching students how to write a claim, how to use evidence to support their investigation writing. So Big History Project's Score is a phenomenal tool.
So now it's time for us to do some actual hands-on work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break you guys up into groups. We've got 3 groups. We're gonna give you guys a document to kind of go through, one of the kind of foundational curricular, building materials that we really love, that we love to reflect on and we love to show people. One is gonna be our first unit guide. This is a document you're gonna see in every one of our units, obviously, but it's gonna give you an idea of what you should expect as you look through, and this will be a great time to kind of think about it, review, and pull out any questions you might have about it so we can discuss as a group. Next, you're gonna have the Progressions Placemat. This is gonna be a PDF that has a bunch of hyperlinks on it. It's gonna literally tell you what's going on in each of those units, and it'll give you a really clear understanding of where those key materials are and those driving questions are before you have to start the planning process. And lastly, you'll see an example of one of Megan's favorite activities from the course. You'll get a chance to look through that and see how we lay those out and pose any questions. But we have a good amount of time, so I'm going to put us in rooms for about 15 minutes. My suggestion would be spend the first 5 reading through materials, and as the moment takes you, feel free to start discussing in group. Me and Megan are going to be bouncing around to answer questions and to see if we can drive, any concerns that may be coming up. But I'm going to start off by dropping the full set into the chat. So you can actually, Megan, if you don't mind dropping those 3 links into the chat. Group 1 will be doing the first one. Group 2 will be doing the second one. Group 3 will be doing the third. I'm also going to bounce around and drop the link in myself if you missed it or wasn't quite clear. But yeah, we really just want to spend this time with you kind of exploring some of our materials and asking those big questions. Questions about that before we break into those groups. So this is the first, Megan just dropped the first link. That's going to be for group number 1. That's going to be unit guide. And the others are on their way. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to open the rooms and I'll bounce around and drop those links as well. So it might be about 30 seconds of quiet talk time, but I'll be around shortly. Thank you, folks. I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so a couple things. We had I said 15, I auto set to 10 minutes, bad Jason, but we have an opportunity now to kind of talk whole group about some questions that may have come up as you were discussing, comments you wanted to share, and we can go bit by bit just to kind of get the initial takeaway reaction. And then we're going to go through a more kind of detailed walkthrough led by Megan of each of those documents, so everyone gets a chance to get a taste for what each of those things did. But let's get started with that. I'm going to check the chat, see if anyone is dropping anything there. There is not. That makes me sad. That's okay. But so you guys, so let's start off with group number 1. They were focused on the unit guide. Any questions, any takeaways, any immediate thoughts come up as you were walking through that document? It's about 5 o'clock in DC. So that means it's officially too late for cold calling. I cannot do it, but I did hear some cool stuff in there. I would love to call on a friend or two to share those thoughts, but I'll hold off on that. I'm not gonna go there just yet.
I can share something that I kind of took away from it.
Cool.
In Arizona, we don't have a designated standardized test for social studies, at least not in my middle school level. So I really like the interdisciplinary approach that's being presented here, because I think it brings a little bit more validity to our subject area. I like that it would make it more relevant for students. I like that it can support our schools and their goals in terms of their standardized testing, and they practice those skills in our classes as well.
Great, thanks for the share. Anyone else from group 1? What are our thoughts about that unit guide? What about the layout? Is that information relevant? Is it helpful? Does it make it more scary, less scary?
I think it makes it a little bit less scary. It was a little intimidating at first.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, like every time I look at the layout of this course, I think about the big bag. I really start going, I get the sweats. I think back to middle school when I could not name for the life of me the planets or spell them properly. I've changed this and I've learned some things, but still, like there's this scary moment we all face, and we hope to kind of, you know.
Well, and I think more so scary when you just hear somebody talk about it than when you have a chance to look at it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Is it my tone? I'm going to go with a softer tone next time. I get it. Okay. No, but seriously, I kid, but you're right. I think looking at this is really one of the things we love to get to in our sessions, because it helps people really wrap their head around what we're thinking and we're talking about. Thank you for that. So let's go on to group 2. Group 2 is looking at our placemats. I think, Megan, that was your crew.
That was my crew. And Christina, you were in there with me. What did you think about it?
I'm here. So I just really liked the way it kind of gives us the big picture. That was actually one thing somebody in our group talked about, was how important it is to remember the big picture and to remind our students of what the big picture is. So as a teacher, I like that this gives me the big picture, and then I can kind of dig into it from there and pick out, you know, what's like my part of the big picture. Like as a 6th grade teacher, what's the part that I need to focus in on? And I think it really lends well to vertical articulation. Like I can we always meet with the 5th grade and the 7th grade teachers at the beginning and end of the year to talk about, okay, where did you leave off last year? And, you know, this is how far I made it. So this would be a really useful tool for that. You know, I could go right to the 7th grade social studies teachers and be like, this is what we did. And this is what we didn't do.
Great, thank you for sharing. Anyone else from group 2?
The layout of it is just really nice, as are the hyperlinks. It's very organized.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, is it's immediately useful. It literally can be a placemat. Like if you're old school like me and you love printing out your planning materials so you can get an eye on it. I was a big anchor chart person when I taught 3rd grade, and it was I love those kids to this, like, anyway, but like I had anchor charts all over the walls because it was a reminder to me of how to prompt students, how to support them. And it was good for them to see, like, you know, these are the easy wins. Like if you need a sentence starter, it's there staring you in the face to help you. I don't need to like hold you accountable to like not knowing how to do this simple thing. We can learn together, we can grow together. And the placemats follow the same kind of cadence. The idea here is that when we're trying to figure out how to navigate this course, this isn't a pop quiz. You can have this at your ready. And if it's digital, you can click on those links. It can take you immediately to where you need to be. Group 3, nobody was there to give you guys love. I dropped in, you guys were busy, I left. Now it's your time to shine. Anything come up when you're looking through the activity? And again, this is Megan's favorite activity. So any negative comments about this, she's gonna feel hurt. I want you to know that. That said, anyone want to share their immediate takeaway from the lesson, or even the lesson structure, how we put those things together? Oh, here we go. We got one in the chat. Mercedes says she was in group 3. I love the project, but it looks overwhelming if the whole class is learning and researching different civilizations. I've taught just one civilization, with a similar checklist and even with scaffolding and having done similar prior activities, they still struggled. Mercedes, can you tell me a little bit more about that? I want to make sure I understand the comment fully.
I've taught, somebody else brought this up. I've taught the 6th grade ancient history stuff with the GRAPES acronym. And I love that because it's a format that I can use to spiral throughout each civilization throughout the whole year. And the kids seem to, even with struggle, you know, we talk a lot about economics in our group, but even with spiraling, they still really miss the big, for me, I find like they miss the big idea, even when I say, all right, you're looking at this, here's a good resource, read this, where is, you know, how did they trade, you know, or, you know, what was their geography like? They really, they tried, but they missed the mark on some of it. So when I look at doing, you know, multiple civilizations at one time, I go, wow, that's a lot of different balls up in the air to juggle. So it's nothing negative. I love it. It's just, it takes a lot of prior knowledge. I know my kids come in and, you know, they don't really know what a real river is. You know, being in Arizona, they don't see that stuff. So, you know, trying to get some of those basic, just, you know, physical land concepts down, basic economic concepts down, it's a struggle. So.
Sure. Megan, do you want to add anything onto that one?
Yeah, I do. I agree that it can be overwhelming. And I had some of the same challenges or concerns when I first started the project, as how are my students going to be working on different topics, keeping them in small groups and regular check-ins, and understanding that I'm spending a lot of time on this project personally. We take a lot of time. I check in with them regularly. It's still a lot, providing them resources, but it's also, for me, what's so amazing is the connections that students can make across these civilizations. Prior to Big History, I taught, you know, ancient Mesopotamia, and then the Indus River Valley, and then, you know, ancient Greece, ancient Rome. And it was kind of like in a box, one thing at a time, take the test and then move on to the next thing. And students couldn't make the connections between those civilizations. And I feel like that's so important for them understanding their world and their place in it. So for me, the beauty of the project, it might be a little bit challenging and a little overwhelming, but those connections that they can make across the civilizations, across time and space, are so important and worth some of the extra time that I've had to spend to scaffold some of the instructions so that they're doing the project. And you can adjust this project to fit the needs of your students. So.
And sorry, this is for bonus points. If anyone can drop the acronym for GRAPES into chat first, they get bonus points from Jason. You get Jason bucks. Oh, here we go. Mercedes is doing it. She hit a snag. So close. Oh, there we go. Megan's fit. Where's the A? Oh, okay, it's fine. So Mercedes did it. Okay, there we go. So I would love to kind of walk through some of the walkthrough documents. Anything we missed, Megan's going to kind of breeze through some of the top line points, and if we really want you to know about not just that single thing, but the structure and where what that thing looks like in each of the units. So let's start off with the unit guides.
Okay, so the unit guides are found in each of the units. They're designed to provide you with the outline of what to expect in the unit, both with content and skills, and gives you really the rationale behind the instructional approach. One part that I really appreciate in this unit guides are the misconceptions and teaching challenges sections, because this allows me to think about the obstacles that I may face or questions that students may have as we go through the unit. And in the chat, Marley and Catherine mentioned that in the unit guide, there was I forget what it's called. Yeah, the Reconciling Faith and Science, which was part of that misconceptions and teaching challenges. So knowing what you may run into is incredibly useful.
Yeah. So let's move on to the placemats. What might we have missed about the placemats? Ms. Schultz.
So I think we did a good job on the placemat. This is really designed for your planning in mind. So you have that long-term planning. You also have short-term planning within each unit. You're hyperlinked back to the activities. You have a driving question for your unit that's right at the top of this placemat. So you can see where you've been and where you're going. I think we hit all of that.
Last but not least,
my favorite activity, my favorite is the Early Civilizations Museum project, which I obviously just talked about, so you know a little bit about it. Besides the fact that I think it's an amazing activity, I love the way that Big History Project structures their activities for us. So in your teacher-facing materials, you have the purpose, you have practices, you have the process. So the purpose, you know, every activity is going to tell you what's the purpose behind it. So if you're like me, you want to know, why am I doing this activity? What's the end goal? So Big History Project activities give you a purpose. They also give us practices. So if we go back to that practices progression placemat, you see where the skills are being introduced and where they're reinforced. But a lot of our activities also reinforce these skills. So for example, the Early Civilizations Museum project reinforces causation. So students are being asked to convince you that their civilization made the greatest contribution to the world. So they kind of have to think about the consequences of that civilization. Yeah, and all of this purpose and practice is also in the student-facing material. So students see why they're doing this activity. So it'll stop them from asking you, why are we doing this?
Cool. Thank you, Megan. So I'd mentioned this earlier, and I really want to make sure we focus on this for a little bit, and this alone, the Bhp Teacher Community. And this is not just specific to BHP, it's kind of like our OER network. We have a community, and there are course specific spots there for people to get more assistance, to connect with other educators who are just like you, maybe novice at the course, or maybe more seasoned and been using it for a little bit. The goal here is just to kind of have a low stakes collaborative space for people to ask those questions, to read comments from others, to be able to push their practice without anyone, you know, there's no teacher evaluation involved here. This is just really just you being an active member in a community of people who are invested in your success. And what you'll find as you get in there is people really have a really positive takeaway. This isn't toxic. This is a place where people really do. You drop a question there at 12 o'clock at night, because of the benefit and the kind of the span of our network. Someone in Australia may respond to your question. Someone in the Netherlands may. Someone in California. Like, there's an opportunity there to really connect with a lot of people who have different experiences there. And most people, as you can see from the quotes, really like it. They benefit from that. And I think it's something that when you get your follow-up email from us, that would be the thing that I really want to push you guys to do almost immediately. Obviously, we want you to register for the site so you can be formally in the fold and get all the cool updates. But join the community, drop a line, say hello. You'd be surprised how easy it is to kind of get connected and benefit from that. And sorry, I'm going to check the chat. And there we go. Yeah. Linda's dropping some other cool notes about the community. It's something, again, like any other, like when I first discovered what Reddit was, I stared at it for like a year before I even, like, I still don't quite understand it. All these things are a little intimidating. They're not all exactly the same. I would say that the community is more user friendly, more intuitive than most things I've seen in this kind of vein. And again, there's no registration, there's no cost to this. It really is just a space for you to collaborate with others. Megan, did I miss anything about community?
No, I just added into the chat that I lurked for a full year before I started jumping in and sharing my own thoughts and ideas. But it really is a very welcoming space. So for me, I teach big history alone in my district. So it was a place where I could turn to other teachers and get ideas and help if I needed it. So.
Cool. She lurked for a year and now she's presenting. Like, what did we miss out on for that whole year? I don't know. It's terrible. The next thing I really want to note for you guys is our asynchronous courses. So we're talking about big history now, but obviously like we have the World History Project as well. What we have is a asynchronous course that you can engage with online. It's a PD course. At the end, it offers a certificate for 9 hours of professional learning credits. Really valuable tool. You can go at your own pace. There's no timeline on it. And you can revisit any of those modules whenever you'd like to, get a refresher on something you may have forgotten, or to push your practice and go a little bit deeper next time. What we say in this kind of space is that it takes a little bit to fully adapt a new course, and there's no expectation, at least not on our end, for you to do that quickly. If you pull in pieces here or there and you make those really work and you get comfortable with them, it's important to have a resource that is equally adaptive. And I think the asynchronous course does that really well. So once you log in, you'll see in bright lights, teaching big history. It is really just that. It is a hands-off, take at your own pace PD module, or I'm sorry, rather a set of modules that you can take to help support you as you onboard and get started in this course. And last, this is my favorite thing. I'm the PD guy, so I've got to do the PD plug. What we do, we have something that we host every year. Well, not every year. This is the second year, so twice now. It's the OER Conference for Social Studies. This was kind of an idea birthed out of the pandemic, where we were used to kind of doing the conference thing. We made our rounds, but we found that educators were not able to make those same leaps. Like obviously, we were kind of all grounded for travel, but on top of that, we started to really figure out and reconcile that like the cost was blocking a lot of really great ideas, great minds from being able to engage and to learn. And we want to strip that all away. So what we have this year, again, for our second time, is going to be this conference. It's free of charge. It's going on for 3 days. What we've done is, like, in my virtual travels, we and everyone else in the team, we get to meet these amazing educators with these big, bright ideas. And what we have in this space is an opportunity to give them a platform to share those big ideas with others. These are all pre-recorded talks that are TED Talk style. And like I remember very clearly that when I went to a conference, the worst thing I could do is spend my time and money going to a conference and to walk away from a session without a clear understanding of what to do, without a call to action. And that's one of the things we really wanted to make sure each of the talks have. And I think we've succeeded pretty well. What you're going to see in each of these talks is a really clear next step for you. And the theme for the conference for this year is going to be reentry. And the larger kind of sussed out theme is, what does it look like for educators globally to prepare their spaces for students when they return? Because we know, like, we're in different places, but for the most part, globally, we're going to see a mass amount of students who may not have been with us previously rejoining our classroom communities. And if we're going to do that, changes are necessary, but we don't always have the agency to make massive changes. But those smaller changes can really make a world of difference. And getting educators to come together and listen to these has been a really great idea to add. I'm sorry, Tammy has a hand up. I'd love to.
Hi, Jason.
Hey.
Hey, I just wanted to, I know I'm starting to get some things in the chat. Arizona's back in school by that time. We are early starters. So I was just telling everyone that it's available after the fact because it's pre-recorded. And we have some questions about, like, how do you attend it after the fact or sign up for it?
That's a really good question. So a couple things. I can hang around a little bit afterwards. I think we'll have some time after we end the session proper, and I can share my screen and show you. But really the easiest way to think about this is that we post the individual talks online the minute that they are, well, not the very minute, but pretty soon after they're done, so they're available. If you went to the website right now, you'd see all of our conference talks from last year, and we plan to keep them up as long as possible. So year after year, you'll be able to see all of the talks in their entirety. Also, I kind of buried the lead. And Tammy also is going to send out some stuff as well. I buried the lead. We have keynote speakers that we really, really love to kind of have be a part of our fun every year. And this year we have the honor of welcoming one of my mentors, one of my favorite people in the world, Brian Stevenson, who wrote Just Mercy, an amazing intellectual, amazing person to kind of share a space with. And he's going to add a little bit of his insight on what it looks like for us to kind of reckon with some of the challenges of the last year and support our students as they return to us. And not to be, Trump, but that we have also LeGarrette King, who's also an intellectual and academic who has supported educators and the like in grappling with race and equity work. And we also have, she's gonna kill me. I'm spacing on her name right now. I apologize in advance. I will send it to you.
Jane Kaminsky.
Yeah, Jane Kaminsky. There we go. See,
who is one of my close friends.
I see. And I see. Please don't tell her. Please don't
I
tell her.
won't. I promise.
I should have. Okay. I don't know why. Like when I heard the name, I was thinking about the lady who was in I can't think of the show right now. But the point is, the name sounded familiar to me and was stuck in the back of my head. And I don't know why I forgot it. I had one of those moments. I apologize. Long story short, what we'd like, obviously, is for you guys to be able to be a part of this. So when you register, you'll get all of the kind of updates. So you'll know exactly when to log in and you can check for those recorded videos. Obviously, the minute you register, you can check out our stuff from last year. And these are all things just like our coursework. It's open source. So you can use those. I know some folks use this in like if you're hosting a PLC within your building, these could be really great. They kind of help teachers wrap their heads around a specific challenge. We have opportunities to share this with other educators in our network. There's a lot of ways to use these and they're available for you to use as you need. So the stuff that's already up there, you can immediately use it. The stuff as it comes in this year, feel free. Last thing to note too is that, I'm sorry, and I'm gonna try to answer these questions in real time. After they recorded you watch them. Tammy, I'm gonna probably punt that one to you about PD hours. The short answer I can give you is that we're making information available for just about every state that we work with online about how they can use their attendance to get professional development hours, to get professional learning credits. And because it's at a distance and because it's pre-recorded, whether you watch it then, watch it later, that probably isn't as big of a factor, but I could be wrong. I don't want to speak for the specifics of Arizona. Is there something I'm missing, Tammy?
Sorry. No, we'll work it out. Linda and I will talk about how we'll be able to do something like that.
Yeah, so sorry, there's so many states and everything is so different compared to there, but yeah, whatever we can do to support that, we really want to make sure we don't want to leave you in a lurch. So if there's something that we're missing, we work with Tammy and Linda practically weekly now, right? But whatever you do to make it happen, we're happy to oblige. Am I missing anything else in the chat? No. Cool, and I'm sorry, and the last thing is if you are interested in sharing your ideas on this stage, please let me know. Like we will have I'll drop my email address into the chat right when we're done. So feel free to drop me a line. We can get some time on the books, have a virtual coffee. You can tell me about what you want to do. Because we would love to have more educators from Arizona taking the virtual stage and sharing their big ideas. There's a lot of really great ideas that sometimes live in our heads, and we want to get it out there for the world to kind of engage with as well. And this is for the folks who stuck around. This is a cool thing I wanted to share with you guys. So we have a new project that's come out of like the last couple of days that I wanted to make everyone aware of. So this is we have a design partner program that we're working on now, and this is to get feedback from educators on completing our courses. Like when you are teaching the Big History Project, when you're teaching the World History Project, like it's important for us to continue improving our courses as we go. And for that, we really need your time. We need you to, answer some questions and do some basic stuff. Like most of these things, there's a beginning of year survey, and there's a end of year survey to help us kind of gauge growth for students across the year. But short of that, there are really just a few questions and checkpoints. But if you're able to do that, we offer a stipend of $375 to participants. So Megan, if you don't mind, we're going to drop the link to the form into the chat. And obviously you can share this with other folks. If you're not interested, that's fine. There's a requirement for how much of the course you have to complete. So if you're supplementing, it might not be a good fit for you. But if you're someone who plans on using it in its entirety, this could be a really great thing for you to take part of. Obviously, there's a nice gift there. But in addition, we get to learn more about how folks are using our stuff and make it better next time we come visit. So Megan just dropped that into chat, so that's there, and I'm going to answer a question about the audio on articles. Can either one of you answer that? Amanda, can you share that question again? I think I might have missed it.
I didn't type it in, so no,
Gotcha.
You didn't miss it. You're fine. My question was, so I'm looking at an article, and I can see how I can listen to the audio for it.
How do I share that audio with students?
So the same way that you can hear it, the students, they sign into the OER project site for Big History. They'll have access to, they'll have a student mode, but it has most of the same resources there. So they'll be able to download the audio as well.
So if I share share the article through Google Classroom, they would be able to
so
access it.
No. So with that, I would download the audio to my device and then upload it to my Google Classroom. But if you're having students use the Big History Project site, they can access it there as well.
Okay, I'm not seeing how to download the audio. I think that's my.
Amanda, and I'm sorry.
I just found it.
I was gonna say, Amanda, for this and anything else, like if there's one of those specific issues, please, again, when my email comes up, we're happy to, if it's not me, somebody who knows the question better is happy to jump on a call with you and walk you through, share some screens and get you an answer to your question.
Awesome, I appreciate that. No, I'm super excited to use this. I was like, there's gotta be a way. I'm so sorry. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Well, she wasn't talking to me, she's talking to Megan. Sorry, never mind.
Appreciate you too, Jason.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I needed that. So next steps, I just wanted to kind of stick the landing and give you an idea of what we're thinking about for next. First, if you haven't already, please go to the oerproject.com and register. Again, we're not going to spam you. It really is just a bunch, not a bunch, all the updates that are going to be necessary for things you want to do. It'll help you get started with the course. It'll give you a heads up about all of the opportunities we have coming up. This is a PD specifically for Arizona, but we offer a bunch of other PDs throughout the summer, either about specific areas of content or pedagogy, or more onboarding support to get you started. Like there's a bunch of options out there. Obviously, we have the asynchronous stuff in the community as well, but all these connections are going to be made via email. So if you are able to register, please do so we can keep you in the fold. Also, like we have an exit ticket, but I wasn't sure. Linda, do you have an exit ticket already? I don't want to bury people in exit ticket.
No, I don't.
Okay, so I am going to pull this up and send it to you in a second because we'd love to get your feedback. This almost feels like it's a cliche thing to say, but I read every exit ticket. I really appreciate any feedback you guys can offer. And it really helps us to kind of make the courses better, to make the sessions better, to make the educator experience better. And lastly, like we're going to be reaching out. If you are able to fill out exit ticket, if you're able to register, you're officially in the fold and you'll be getting our follow-up emails and you'll be able to hear about all the cool opportunities that are coming up and you'll get links to all the materials we talked about today. But that's all we have today. Like I said, we're willing to hang out for a little bit and answer any questions that weren't addressed earlier, but I am going to put that on Megan's shoulders for like a minute and a half while I pull up the link for the survey. I'll drop it in the chat. And yeah, thank you guys for your time.
Before everyone goes, real quick, just as an item of attendance, if you can please in the attendance, put your first and last name so that way I can mark your attendance for you. Also, so you know, I put out a monthly newsletter from August until May. If you are interested in getting our monthly newsletter, which has tips and tricks from OER Project and many other things, as well as PD, you can also type your email into the chat and I can add you to our newsletter list if you don't already get it. And with that, I want to give a special thank you to Jason and Megan for a great introductory training on the OER project, specifically geared for Arizona's middle school standards. And unless you have any other questions, I think that's it for today. And thank you all so much for coming.
So I just dropped the exit ticket into the chat. I see all the email addresses and unfortunately I won't have access to the chat after we leave. So please fill out the exit ticket and make sure your email address is in there where we note it. And that'll be the fastest way for me to stay connected with you and answer any questions you might have. But while you're filling that out, actually I'll drop it again because I think we might have got buried in email addresses real quick.
If you guys have trouble logging into and setting up the OER account, you can always call Linda and I. And we've set up an account before for ourselves, so we might be able to help troubleshoot.
Yep. So, and it'll take about a week. Give me at least a week, but it will probably be done sooner, that your attendance will be noted in the ADE system. And at that point in time, you'll get an email from me that says you're completed. and you can log in. There'll be a little survey to complete, and then you'll get be able to print your certificate for today. Last thought, Jason?
You guys are great. Just lovely, bright face, lots of smiles. You guys are great. You guys work it out. You guys look great. Just fantastic. This is, so I dropped my email address in the chat. Please, note that Jason.Wilkinson, Jason with a Y. You'll never forget it now, I swear. Jason.Wilkinson@gatesventures.com. Shoot me an email. If not that, you've got the exit ticket link 2 times in the chat. Please make sure you filled it out and drop your email address in there as well. I'll be sure to connect, see if we can get you set up. But that's it.
Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.